Welcome back, everyone. How are you all doing? In our previous lessons, we explored the first and second stanzas of William Wordsworth's poem Daffodils. Today, we will start the third stanza, which further delves into the impact of the daffodils on the speaker. So, let us begin. Let us all start by reading the third stanza together. It starts like this: The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So now, in the second stanza, the poet was comparing these daffodils along the margin of the bay with the stars in the Milky Way. Like they both are like a continuous stretch, which is not ending anywhere. Now the poet is comparing these daffodils with the waves that are there in that stream or in that bay. Okay, so let us first understand the meanings and word meanings. So the lines start like this: The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Outdid means surpassed, exceeded. Sparkling is shining brightly, and glee is, of course, a very strong feeling of happiness. So here, actually, the poet goes on describing the enchanting quality of the daffodils. The waves in the nearby lake seemed to be dancing and also sparkling due to the sun's rays falling on them. But the poet is saying the beauty of thousands of daffodils is surpassing the beauty of these sparkling waves. So, in other words, we can understand it like this: Wordsworth is actually comparing the dancing waves beside the daffodils to the lively movement of the flowers. You must be remembering from stanza 1 and 2 that due to the wind that is blowing, they are moving from side to side, and it seems to the poet that they are dancing. So, here the daffodils are also there along the margin of the bay. You remember from the previous stanza. So, here Wordsworth is saying that though the waves beside the daffodils are very lively and they are shining, but the daffodils are actually surpassing the waves in their joy and happiness. In simple words, you can understand that he is trying to say that though the beauty and the liveliness of waves is very great and very eye catching, but the beauty and the liveliness of daffodils is much more than those of the waves. So, despite the beauty of the surrounding natural elements, here what is that? The waves in that bay, in that lake. It is the daffodils that bring utmost delight. That means daffodils are looking more beautiful in comparison to the waves that are shining in the sun. Next lines: A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. So here the word gay means happy, delightful, and jocund is also cheerful. And a poet, who is referred as a poet, actually Wordsworth is referring to himself as a poet in this context. So in these lines he is saying a poet could not but be gay, means he is expressing the profound impact the daffodils have on the poet. Wordsworth is saying that in the company of such joyful and lively daffodils, which are surpassing the beauty of the waves beside them, a poet cannot help but feel joyous and inspired. In the company of such beautiful daffodils, the poet is also feeling very happy, very delightful. So, the word gay here is actually signifying the sense of happiness and delight. So, the poet is actually feeling that he could not be anything apart from being happy in such a beautiful, such a lively, such a happy company of these daffodils. Next, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Gazed here means looking at something for a longer time. Then little thought means didn't think about it much. And wealth is actually the joy and happiness that the daffodils would bring for the poet. So now let us understand the meaning. So Wordsworth talks about how he looked for a long time at the daffodils. The word gazed and gazed is a figure of speech known as repetition. We use it for emphasizing on some action or something. Okay, so here the action is looking at these daffodils for a long time. So poet wants to emphasize on this point that he was looking at the daffodils for a long time, but he didn't really think about or understand the true value or true wealth, or in other words, the joy and happiness that these daffodils will bring for him. He was so mesmerized and engrossed in the beauty of the daffodils that he could not understand the impact these daffodils would have on him. It's like he was lost in that moment and just gazing at the daffodils without even realizing the wealth of inspiration, joy, and happiness that these daffodils would bring to his life. This he will realize later on, that we will read in the next stanza. So Wordsworth is expressing how sometimes we may not fully appreciate or understand the significance of something special in our lives until later in life when we think about it. Okay, we reflect on it. Sometimes we go out. No, nowadays you must have noticed whenever we go out, we just start clicking the selfies and taking photos. We don't enjoy that moment. Okay, if we enjoy that moment, we realize that how beautiful that moment was, and this happens only when we reflect on that moment in later part of our life. In the same way, the poet is also saying that we don't really understand the significance of something in that moment. So the daffodils had a deeper meaning and importance that Wordsworth did not grasp initially, but later he would come to understand the real wealth wealth of joy and happiness that these daffodils would bring for him, and the positive impact of these daffodils that will be there on the poet. This we will learn in the next stanza, children. Now let us go through the figures of speech that have been used in this stanza. So the first one is the waves beside them danced. So again, what is it? A human-like quality. A personification is used here to give a sense of living being. Waves here are said to have an ability to dance. Again, who dances? Some living being. Okay, it's a human-like attribute. In fact, the wave is a raised line of water that moves across the surface of sea. It's not a human. It is a movement, but not literally a dance like a dancer does. But even then, poet is saying that the waves are dancing. So he is actually attributing the human-like quality to the waves, and that is why it is a personification. There's one more example in the line, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. This is again an example of personification. Here, the poet is indicating how the daffodils, like how human beings do, no, in the same way the daffodils are also involved in a dancing competition. Against whom? Against the waves. On one side the waves are dancing, and on the other side the daffodils seem to be dancing. So here, who is actually defeating? The daffodils are defeating the waves in glee, in the happiness. So these both are the examples of personification. Next literary device that is used is repetition. The word gazed has been repeated twice in order to emphasize on the speaker's intense and prolonged observation of the daffodils. He was like, no, for a long time he was continuously looking at those daffodils without thinking about anything else. So now let us understand the theme of this stanza. See, children, if we notice carefully, these three stanzas are actually focusing on the transformative power of nature that the poet is feeling. Okay, so here specifically in stanza 3, we notice the poet as a nature poet. Okay, how? So in the beginning, the poet is wandering lonely as a cloud. Then suddenly he sees a vast belt of daffodils stretched along the margin of the bay. Okay, so the daffodils appear to be golden in color. Golden means yellow in color. Actually, it symbolizes the effect it creates on his mind. As the poem progresses, the mood of the poet changes from loneliness to happiness. This we can notice very easily in stanza 3, where he's saying, no, that he was so engrossed in the beauty of the daffodils that he actually forgot in the beginning what wealth they will bring for him. So he is actually like, no, this is the speciality of romantic poetry, children. When the poet feels one with the nature, there's oneness between the poet and the nature. So therefore, by reflecting on the memory of the golden daffodils fluttering and dancing, the poet's heart also dances with the daffodils. So we can say the poet here feels one with the nature. So this also shows us that, no, Wordsworth is actually a nature poet. He is a poet belonging to the romantic era of the poetry. There's one more important point to be noted here, children, that this entire stanza shows a very happy and cheerful mood of the poet in all the lines, like such a jocund company, glee. All these words are actually showing us that he was in a very happy mood and cheerful mood. He's so engrossed in the beauty of the daffodils that are fluttering and dancing along the bay that he forgot about everything else around him. Now let us recap the meaning of the stanza 3. Okay, so the poet goes on to describe the enchanting quality of the daffodils in the stanza. The waves in the nearby lake seemed to be dancing and also sparkling due to the bright sun rays falling on the lake. But the beauty of the thousands of daffodils that are fluttering and dancing along the margin of the bay surpassed the beauty of these sparkling and shining waves. That means the daffodils are looking much more beautiful in comparison to this shining wave. The poet feels that he could not be anything but happy in such a gleeful, just such a cheerful company. Okay. The poet further says that all he could do was to continuously just stare at the daffodils because the sight before him amazed him. He was mesmerized by the beauty of the daffodils in that moment, and he did not think about anything else in that particular sight. So thank you so much for watching the video, children. I hope you have all gone through the first two videos of this poem Daffodils. If you have any doubt, any question, any confusion, you can write in the comment section. And I again tell you, when you try to understand the meaning, look at the pictures. I guarantee you, you will not forget in the exams if you relate the meaning and the picture. So thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you so much.